Welcome, intrepid viewers. We are playing the Vigilantes Union series. I'm Ben Ravensdale, the GM, and I will be throwing up whatever diabolical schemes our hero today has to fend off. Speaking of our hero today, today's issue is starring...
Hi, I'm Dana Prevey, and I'll be playing Amber today. Well, you'll be meeting her shortly, and I don't want to spoil any surprises, but I'll just pass it back to you.
All right. So we are going to jump right into things. Amber,
Yes.
you work in the mailroom for the Portland Portent, which is in a superhero universe. It's sort of some might consider it a fringe newspaper, but it covers mainstream news as well as some of the weird, strange, crazy science and odd occurrences in the world and things like that. Specifically, kind of focusing on Portland and the surrounding area. You are an aspiring journalist, I think is probably the best way to say it. Okay.
Yes.
Generally speaking, you work in the mailroom. Every once in a while, though, you are asked to kind of sort of like do intern work when there is a news crew that's going out on location to cover some sort of a story. In this particular case, there was a fairly big story that a couple news crews from the Portent were sent out to cover. So even though it's a newspaper, they do of course have an online presence. They've got like a YouTube channel and stuff like that. So they do occasionally have like video news bits, and so they've got people who work as anchors as well as field reporters and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's you're kind of accompanying like the journalist that's going to write the story for the paper, and then also the anchor that's kind of covering it live like on video, as well as the cameraman
Right.
for both. So it's basically like a 2-van operation.
Okay.
And the story is actually, it's not like there's any crazy action going on, but it's a relatively momentous thing. There's been a lot of talk of a Vigilantes Union being founded in Portland. It hasn't yet occurred, but the vote is coming up very soon, and there's a fair amount of public support for this. However, there's also been some opposition to it, with a number of fairly prominent citizens actually advocating for, instead of having the Vigilantes Union, which, have had some issues in some of the other chapters, they're actually proposing instituting a private security firm known as Blockade Defenses Limited, basically sort of like the superhero protectors for the city. There is the guy in charge is he's sort of a superhero in his own right. He's got his own kind of suit of armor. Think sort of Iron Man, War Machine-esque. And he goes by Commander Blockade, kind of publicly. And so the news crews go and they interview him, and they kind of get some shots of his security teams in action, and he gives a demonstration of his suit and yada yada yada. Overall, it's fairly boring stuff, but they get a lot of good content, and there's some interesting stuff there for a number of different articles. At the end of the day, you guys pack up the vans and you start heading back.
Right.
When Amber's in the field, what do you do? What's your? Do you take pictures?
Well,
Are you more of like a PA?
so now's a good time to describe Amber.
Yeah.
She's about 6'4" and pretty solid muscle. And that kind of athletic muscle, not really like a bodybuilder, but muscle that's meant to be used for something, not just for show. And so just kind of by default, she's often told to carry a lot of the heavy stuff around, that sort of thing. But she all the time she's doing that. She's like, all right, I finished that up. Now can I, take some notes for you, or take a picture of this thing, and just anything to try and get out of the mailroom and actually become a reporter, because that's what she really wants to do.
Okay.
Most of the time she's carrying heavy stuff, or going to get coffee for the actual reporters, or that kind of thing.
So a little bit of a PA slash grunt, almost.
Yes.
Okay. How long has Amber been working for the Portent at this point?
Only for, I would say, about 6 months or so. She
Okay.
recently graduated from community college with her journalism degree,
Okay.
and is now trying to make her way in the world.
The classic like the new kid gets stuck with the grunt work stuff. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Um, so yeah, you are probably in the van with the not the anchor and the cameraman, but the journalist and her photographer. Uh, Journalist is going to be Eliza Edmonds. Uh, the photographer is going to be Timmy Wilson because we need a Jimmy Olsen
Of
type.
course.
The cameraman will say he's going to be James. I keep wanting to say James Franco. No, that's an actual person. Um, James Simmons. And the anchor is going to be a Brock Kentman, who I believe actually featured in um, Compiler's issue yesterday. So that works out well. And for those of you who don't get the reference, Brock Kentman is a play on Kent Brockman from The Simpsons. So, anyways, so you are in the van with Timmy and Eliza. Timmy is writing. Eliza's in the passenger seat, kind of like, she's tapping away on her phone, like as she kind of like compiles her thoughts and stuff like that. She's kind of focused. So you and Timmy are probably like, if either of them are chatting with Amber, it's going to be Timmy.
Yeah. I would imagine that Timmy also occasionally gets sent to the do mailroom type stuff.
Yeah,
While I'm hauling around gear, he's been there a little bit longer, so he takes the photographs.
yeah,
So
exactly. He's a little bit older than you by a couple of years, but he's also relatively new. Like he was the new kid before you showed up. So
right.
that's kind of why he got moved out of the mail room and started being able to actually go out on actual, you know,
Right.
stories. So, yeah. What do you chat with Timmy about? Like, do you have a particular line of conversation you usually follow
Um,
with him, or?
Actually, so I'm probably chatting about what we just saw and what his thoughts are, and isn't this interesting? Uh, you know, did you hear what the CEO there said, or what's was it Commander Blockade said about the people they have? I mean, I'm sure they're really well trained, but I mean, wouldn't you rather have like superheroes to defend you? I mean, they're that kind of thing,
Okay.
and trying to figure out what he thinks about the story. She's very enthusiastic. She's always very enthusiastic.
Uh, a golden retriever in human form.
Exactly.
Yeah, Timmy, he's more than happy to chat about stuff while he's on the road because Eliza is usually focused, so he's always happy to have someone to talk to. Yeah, Timmy's kind of like well, I get the kind of inclination away from superheroes who are kind of anonymous, like you know the company that they run is registered, and they've got insurance and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
like, sure, the union offers that kind of stuff, but
Right.
that's more of like a public service, so funding comes from the city budget and yada yada yada. Like, it's like,
Right.
he's kind of like just kind of prattling on about both sides of the argument, and etc.
Right.
So, um, as
And
you
maybe they could
guys
work together.
say again.
I said, and Amber's take is, well, maybe they could work together.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, maybe, who knows.
Yeah.
um, we'll have to see how that pans out. While you guys are driving, it was a relatively nice day when you came out this
Mhm.
morning. And as especially the anchor and the cameraman are wont to do, they check the forecast before they go out so they can know if there's if they've got a time crunch before a weather front moves in or whatever.
Right.
And it was supposed to be a totally clear, nice day. It was supposed to be like mid mid to high 70s at the highest, and no clouds in the sky, bright, pleasant Portland day. Um, However, while you guys are driving, you notice the sky clouds up like that. Like you're sitting at a light, and the time it takes for the other light to go from green to red, it's totally overcast to the point where it's like, it's it's pretty. It's affected the lighting conditions outside. Like, it's almost like it's later in the evening now. There's a little
See that
rumble
very
of
often.
thunder.
Wow. I should have dressed warmer today, huh?
It's like, yeah, I guess so. That's weird.
Really strange.
Uh,
Well, anyway,
does Portland have any big? Sorry. Okay. Um, you guys are just getting ready to cross one of the larger suspension bridges in Portland, making your way back to Portland headquarters, basically. And there's that kind of rumble of thunder, and then we're gonna say that it's like kind of midsummer at this point.
mhm.
The temperature drops, like the wind it drops so quickly the windshield kind of like frosts over.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, and Timmy kind of like what the hell, and he like he hits the windshield wipers, sprays the fluid up on there, and so it kind of cuts through the frost, and lets him see, and it is like snowing, little like lazy snowflakes drifting down.
That's really weird. I, I- huh. This must be global warming or some. Well, I mean, not global warming, but whatever the opposite of that. I
Climate change.
huh.
The current term is
Right.
climate change, is what
Climate, right?
Eliza
Yes,
says.
right. Climate change. Yes. No, I actually did a paper on this back in high school, and the all the professors and doctors were saying that we should be expecting weather weirding, but not something like this. This is strange. I'm looking out the windows as best I can, seeing if I can see even. Actually, no, I'm not sure Amber would have twigged to the fact that this is unnatural yet. Um, So unless she actually
That's
sees
right.
like something strange.
One thing we should point out is that um, Amber has a hindrance, a flaw, basically in this system. Um, would you like to explain that, or shall I?
So Amber is pretty much oblivious. Uh, there are mechanical effects for it, but effectively she doesn't notice things and just sort of assumes that everything is sort of how it's supposed to be. You know, snow in the summer, that's some weird, climate change effect, or the that's strange. That gargoyle just fell off and almost crushed a person. well, it must have been an old building.
Yeah,
That kind
they
of
really
thing.
need to work on the like renovating that building. Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, in the I forgot to mention we were playing the Marvel Saga system, which is a card-based superhero system from back in the late '90s. It doesn't use dice; it uses cards instead. And as a result, the system is a little bit different from ones that most people might be familiar with. But so, in terms of the game's mechanics, Amber's willpower, which is what kind of generally determines observation and your ability to influence people and your ability to resist psychic things and stuff like that, is pretty strong. Like once you get towards like a 10, that's actually like peak human ability. So Amber's willpower is actually quite good. Unfortunately, because of this oblivious hindrance, her willpower basically means she's really good at things like persuading people to do stuff and resisting psychic attacks, but she's not so good at noticing stuff. So yeah, that's the rub of it. Um, so yeah, while you're kind of like talking about like the climate change and things like that, Eliza is like looking out the window on the passenger side, and she says, Amber, sorry, sweetie, shh, shh. And
What's up?
she rolls the window down and she says, "What is that?" And you
What?
Jimmy kind of like lean down to kind of get a better look, and there is a humanoid figure that is kind of descending out of the clouds. And there is this swirl of like ice particles and snowflakes and things like that, that is kind of like like just whipping around him, and he slowly descends towards the bridge, and as he does, he kind of like gestures with his hands, and all this ice and snow like hits the bridge and kind of like freezes the surface of the bridge solid, and you can feel the wheels on the van like lose traction, because Timmy
Hmm.
was kind of driving forward slowly. They kind of lose traction all of a sudden and starts to skid, and so do like probably about another half dozen cars on the road.
Um, the thing is, I think I know the bridge you're talking about. It's basically an overpass of a bridge over I-5 that goes over I believe the Willamette River there, and it's big and it curves, so it's actually a little bit on a slope, and it's several stories up over this river. And every time I drive over it, I get this feeling of vertigo. It's awful.
I bet, yeah.
Um,
That
so
sounds like
I,
a tenuously designed bridge, but I'm not a bridge designer, so I don't know.
um, anyway, so I imagine that that's where we are. Um, so Timmy, you could you pull over for a second? I just realized I think I left a cable back at the site. I'm gonna run get it, and you just I'll meet you back at the building. Okay?
He's like,
Great.
I don't think I have a
Thank you.
choice in pulling
Bye.
over. Like he's like kind of like trying to get the van to stop skidding. And Eliza's like, "What are you talking about? Where are you going?" As you like pull the door open and jump out of the van. Um,
She's grabbed a duffel bag with her, which has her gym clothes in it,
okay,
because she doesn't have a super suit or anything yet.
right,
So,
okay,
uh, so let's see. She's going to, because there's no real cover, she's going to use sort of like the skidding side of the van as cover, and use her lightning speed to change, to basically whip off the glasses and change into her gym clothes, just so she looks different than she did before in her mind.
okay,
Still 6'4" and made of muscle,
all right.
and
Yeah,
and then she's going to uh, do her best to make sure none of these cars go crash into each other, go off the bridge, anything like that.
okay.
Um,
Give me
and
a. We're gonna do our first action, like our first
all right.
action resolution here. Um, there are, like I said, like the van plus six other cars, so seven cars that are kind of
Mhm.
like that are starting to like skid kind of in the direction of that like slope.
Right.
And give me a lightning speed action, I think.
Okay. Actually, with this, well, it was lightning speed to just to change into her clothes without being visible changing into her clothes.
Yep.
But actually, I would almost say this is more flying because she doesn't want to slip herself, which she knows she would do with super speed.
Sure.
Would that make
Give me a flight action then.
okay? So I'm going to use my flight, which is 8, and do I know how difficult this is roughly? Because, or rather,
I
it might be a
generally
good time to go over the mechanics of
yeah,
this.
I generally
Just
keep
for my.
difficulties secret,
Mhm.
but in general terms, the there's basically a difficulty ladder for the game, and it basically goes up in increments of 4. 0 being automatic, 4 being easy, 8 being average, 12 being challenging, 16 being daunting, and then it goes up to there. 40 is kind of like that's where the ladder caps out in the book. Not that you can't get higher than that, just that that's where they kind of say a 40 is darn near impossible because most heroes are going to be working from a starting point of an intensity of about 8 to 10. Maybe if they've got superpowers, will be higher than that, but even then, you're trying to come up with like 20 plus points worth of card play, and that can be tough. So 40, if the closer you get to a 40, the better you've done. Just to put it in simple terms. In this particular case, so anytime I ask for an action, what you're going to do is you're basically going to play a card and add
Mhm.
the value of that card. So looking at the card,
Okay.
like the 8 on this card or the 5s on these other cards, those are the values of the card. You're going to add the value of the card to whatever stat or trait I've called out as being the appropriate one for the action.
Okay.
So doing a flight action, you've got a flight intensity of 8. Lightning speed, you have intensity of 6. Intellect, 4, etc.
Right.
And basically, you add the card to whatever your score is, and whatever your total is, great. The higher, the better. There are a couple of things that can modify that just a little bit. The first one is every card and every action have a corresponding suit. So the 4 suits are strength, intellect, agility, and willpower. At least the good ones. There's a doom suit as well, but we'll talk about that later. Strength is green, agility is red, intellect is blue, willpower is purple. The doom cards are dark gray or black. So, very easy to kind of call them all out. You can also tell what suit a card is not only by the color of the border, but also by the character in the upper left corner. So it's based on Marvel. Mr. Fantastic is kind of the paragon of heroic intellect, so he's the kind of avatar for the intellect cards. Spider-Man for agility, Hulk for strength, Doctor Strange for willpower, and of course Doctor Doom for doom. So, the reason that the suits are important is because you can, whenever you go to do an action, if you play a card that matches the suit of whatever trait you're using, you get what's called a boost. So in this particular case, Amber's doing a flight action. Flight is based on agility. It's highlighted in red. So if you play an agility card for a flight action, you get a boost, which means you play the top card of the deck and you add that to your total. If that is also an agility card or also a card of the appropriate suit, you continue playing cards until you get a card that is not that suit.
Okay.
And that's kind of the mechanic for getting like a critical hit, if you want to put it in like D&D terms, like rolling a nat 20. You can chain a bunch of cards together and end up with a 40. It's
Okay.
tough, but it can happen.
All right. Well, in this case, it seems like I'm using flight, so I'm starting with an 8. I'm going to play, appropriately enough, the press arrives, which is a agility with 5 base. So that gets me to a 13. But since it's an agility card, I draw from the top of the deck. Correct.
Yep. And
And
that's
I
just going to
put
go right at, look at that.
and another one there. So since it's another agility, I draw again.
Okay.
Another agility. And finally another, or rather a green card, which is strength.
Yep.
So that's 10, 11, sorry, 10, 21 plus 8 is 29.
All right. Yeah, 29 is pretty darn good. I'm going to put these cards in the discard while you draw another card into your hand.
Okay. Oof.
Doom card. That's one of those Doom cards I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way Doom cards work is anytime they're played from a player's hand, um, normally that card would go to me, but instead, because I don't want to mess with the card economy, I'm going to draw a card from my physical copy of the deck, and that card I can use to make things more complicated for the hero in later scenes. So, with you said it was a 29?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, Amber like does a quick change, lightning speed, like I don't know if it's like a Wonder Woman esque like spin, like or whatever, but either way, Amber ends up in her makeshift superhero outfit, and then kind of like zips between cars at a pretty good speed. I mean, probably faster than most people can really see her. And manages to basically stop their momentum in their skid. It does cause a little bit of a problem for like a couple of people rear end other cars because like they're panicking because they've lost traction all of a sudden.
Right.
They're using summer tires because it's summer. And so they hit the gas to try to to not to try to control the skid, and because you stop their momentum from sliding, they suddenly go forward and they hit the car in front of them.
Right.
But I mean, that's better than plummeting off a bridge. So hey,
Right.
what does Amber do after saving the cars?
So she stops for a second, make sure everyone's stopped moving. All right. Who is this person? Hey, hey, you, she says, flying over to them. Knock that off. Didn't you see those cars almost run into each other? Someone could have gotten really hurt.
The guy in the suit, his suit is sort of, it's sort of like a, actually, hold on, let me check something before I say anything silly. Oh yeah, okay, he does not. He's wearing something that's almost like a modified like parka. So it's like a slightly insulated coat that's kind of been incorporated into this superhero, this villain, whatever outfit that he's wearing. That looks like it's got like a couple like armored pauldrons, and it's got like a half cape it's all kind of like frost blue and white kind of like motif. And he kind of like takes the mask off of his helmet as you fly closer, and so you guys can have a conversation without either of you yelling. And he says, "Hey, beat it, kid! I'm working here."
What are you doing? Didn't you see those people almost got hurt? They could have slid off that bridge. That's a really high bridge.
Well, you can't hold a city hostage if you don't threaten some people.
Well, I guess that makes sense. Wait a minute. Why are you holding a city hostage?
Howdy, I'm Patch. Use they them pronouns, and today I'll be playing the role of Compiler, a robotic product of mad science who's trying to not be that anymore.
Trying to distance himself from the creator. Themself?
Itself.
Itself. All right, fair enough. Okay. So to start off with, let's take a quick look at Compiler's character sheet here. I'm going to pull that up in the frame. So as Patch mentioned, Compiler is a robot, an android robot. I don't know what the technical term is, but mechanical life form of some sort. Got some interesting powers that I can't wait to delve into in game. But to start off with, you have a hand size of 3. So do me a favor, draw 3 cards and put them out on the tabletop right underneath the logo there.
Absolutely.
3 agility, 8. Ooh, that 8 of intellect is going to be a really good card for you.
Oh, I hope so.
All right, so as a further quick recap of the rules, basically anytime compiler wants to do something that has an element of failure or a risk of failure, they are going to choose a card from their hand. They're going to play it, and they're going to add it to whatever relevant stat I decide. So if they're trying to break down a door, it would be based on strength. They would play a card, add that card value right there to the 10 strength to get a total. The same thing applies to powers. They're all based on different suits. So all the 4 stats are each a suit: strength, intellect, agility, willpower, and they're color coded on the character sheet. So strength is green, intellect is blue, agility is red, willpower is purple. There's a 5th suit. It is black cards with a black outline or a black background, and those are doom cards, which are generally not good for players. Every power also has a corresponding suit. Stats and powers don't really interact. If you're trying an intellect power, your intellect doesn't matter. It's just the intensity of the power that you can see there. So, being as compiler's primary power is alchemy, which is based on intellect, having a really high intellect card is a good thing. The reason it's good to have cards that match whatever you're trying to do is because whenever you play a card of the appropriate suit, a strength card for a strength action, intellect for intellect action, you get a boost. Basically, that means you get to draw the top card of the deck and add that to whatever you're doing. You keep doing that if you continue to draw appropriate suited cards. So if you play an intellect card for an intellect action, and the card you draw off the top of the deck is intellect card, you play again. And you keep doing that until you get something that's not an intellect card. So yeah, generally speaking, you're looking for those to happen. That's kind of it's sort of like a critical hit, if you want to put it in D&D terms, like rolling a nat 20. So, so let's just quick recap on the rules, but we are going to kick off with, we're gonna jump right into this. We've got a little origin story flashback thing that we'll do a little bit later, but for right now, we're going to jump into this this story that I've got here in front of me. Talk to me about what compiler does on a daily basis. Like, what's its day to day look like?
Yeah. Well, I think on some level that really. I guess I have a couple of questions I have to ask you before I can answer that.
Absolutely.
Like, since it was built to be a mad scientist robot, it's not exactly. It doesn't have a citizenship or social ID or anything. So, is there a way? Would it be reasonable to assume that it's been able to establish an identity, or is it still on the run, having to live in warehouses and such?
I would say at this stage, it's probably still on the run, but that will
Okay.
that's something that we will kind of be addressing as wrapping up this solo arc. That will get addressed.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
In that case, I'm imagining it's found like an abandoned building, a squad of some sort, and maybe use the alchemy to try and reinforce it, maybe make it a little nicer. And it
okay.
doesn't do a ton these days. It's just trying to figure out ways to keep itself safe, which mostly means going to the mall to charge up because it does have to plug in sometimes. So,
Okay. I like the idea that compiler is wandering around the mall after hours when it's all closed down. Um, okay. So, yeah. I would say you probably would have found so the game is set in Portland. For those of you who don't know, Portland, like any relatively big city, has some areas of the city that are have fallen on harder times. They're not super. They're not well frequented by the general public. So yeah, I'd say you would probably be able to find something, that suits your needs. Close enough to a mall or a large, kind of structure of some sort where you could go and recharge. But
a library, a Walmart, anywhere
yeah,
with an outlet, really.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, so that's not a problem. So compiler has a place to hang out. What about hobbies or ways to pass the time?
At this point, I don't think it's figured out a lot of hobbies. So, since we haven't done the flashback episode, we haven't covered this yet, but it really it's got the memories of being its human creator, even though the personality is different.
Hmm.
So I think it spends a lot of time at this point trying to figure out new things to try, basically. It wants to establish an identity for itself that isn't the person it remembers being. So while its ability to do that is limited right now, given everything, I think it wouldn't be unusual for it to, like, I don't know, transmute an axe throwing range in one of the dilapidated rooms or something, just to see if that's interesting.
Okay.
It's
Took up
terrible at
macrame
axe
for a
throwing,
short amount
don't
of
even.
time, and
Exactly, yeah.
okay, all right, yeah, that's fair. Actually, it might make sense for compiler to um, be using like an old um, maybe like uh, storage shed or something like that on the grounds of Portland State or is it Portland State University. Hold on, let me make sure. Yeah, Portland State University. Just because, I mean, it's a repository of knowledge. You can learn
Yeah.
lots of different things. There are lots of people to kind of observe. It's got a pretty robust like computer network. There are potentially raw materials around to make stuff with. We're gonna say that you're
Yeah.
on the grounds of the university in like I said, an old storage shed. It's like kind of like off on the edges of the property, probably in some trees or like on. It's like tucked into the corner of some back lot and it's kind of like blocked by like an old delivery van that isn't used anymore. It's just kind of sitting there, like it's more or less isolated, despite being on the campus. So
Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
okay.
I'm imagining just wandering around campus in a fake pizza delivery uniform to try and blend in a little bit.
What does compiler look like? Can you provide a quick description, just for?
Yeah, yeah, so compiler is big. Not like super heroic big, but like a 6'2", something like that. And really bulky. It's not. It's kind of very square, is what I'm trying to get at. The head is like a faceplate, which is actually a digital screen, and it just displays like emojis as its face, and that's what it looks like most of the time. But yeah,
Okay.
just very classic robot with that digital upgrade.
Okay. So most likely, wandering around campus is going to draw a little bit of attention, but let me know if you're cool with this. I'm okay with kind of playing that off as sort of like a campus urban legend. People are like, oh, did you see that robot that like wanders around campus? Like, oh yeah, I heard like the someone in you know the science department or whatever built it, but like
Hyper-engineering.
nobody fesses up to it, and like there's like rampant speculation about who created the robot and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Um,
Okay.
okay, and yeah, so but probably one of those things where like everybody on campus is like sort of an unofficial like mascot slash cryptid of the campus. So like people are cool about it. They're not. Well, I mean, every once in a while you run into jerks, but generally
Yeah,
speaking,
yeah.
okay. Are you being serious about the pizza delivery outfit, or
Well,
does
I
that
was
change
just
up?
thinking about like the what was it? Like grocery stores have robot drones these days that don't really do anything. They just kind of wander around and are inefficient about helping people, you know? That's kind of the vibe I was imagining it trying to put off as its disguise.
Okay, gotcha.
And pizza delivery made more sense than a grocery store drone when on a college campus, so
That makes sense. Um, so everybody always sees compiler carrying a pizza when they
it's
see compiler on
terrible at
campus,
stealth.
but
Like, it's not even it's just an empty, beat up old box, very obviously fake. It's very bad at this, but it's trying.
okay. Yeah, there are people who think it's like some sort of like protest art or like some sort of like social commentary, and other people who think like someone tried to automate like Uber delivery, and so they're like trialing it on campus, and there's lots of different theories about compiler around campus, but um, probably had I don't how long has compiler been there?
Uh,
Like, how long
Not
has it
too
been since
long by this
compiler
point, I think.
escaped?
I can't imagine it would be more than a month or two by this point.
Okay.
Given how introspective it tends to be, I think it probably would have had a more long-term plan if it had been here very long. So
Okay.
right now it's still fresh and new and confused about the world.
Fair enough. Okay, so then there are more rumors about compiler than actual legit sightings of compiler at this point. Um,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So has compiler scavenged like because keep in mind compiler's transmutation is only um, it's temporary.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
so has compiler like scavenged like old computer parts and stuff like that to put together like a little workstation?
I think it would try to, yeah. And there's probably some other stuff in there too, like a really garbage beat up mattress that it pulled out of a dumpster somewhere. Not because it needs it, but just for like the sentimentality of remembering when it used to sleep.
Right. Um, it's the college experience. You have a cheap mattress and a
Yeah,
cheap computer in your
exactly,
dorm
yeah.
room. So okay. Um,
Ghost, also known as Jessa. She's a grad student working on her PhD out in Portland, Oregon.
and you'll be introduced to Ghost's abilities over the course of the adventure. Um, Ghost, Jessa, really. Let's be honest. I imagine Jessa is more comfortable going by Jessa than Ghost at this point in her career.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, she's just living her life right now as Jessa.
And she just happens to have superpowers.
You got it.
All right. Um, the origin of which is as yet unknown. So, today, Jessa, you're a teacher's assistant, teacher's aide. Like you basically work at the university as part of your PhD program in order to make a little extra money, kind of shave some money off of the tuition costs and all that stuff. Um, Unfortunately, one of the things that often includes is some of the grunt work, like hey, this professor is finished with lectures, tidy up the classroom, get everything organized, ready for the next day's lectures or whatever the case may be. Um, it's not glamorous, but it's important work, and it's the low man on the totem pole situation. So,
Yeah.
so as you are in one of the classrooms, and you're kind of tidying things up and cleaning off the board and yada yada, the door cracks open, and a lady pokes her head in. This is Professor Jada Davis, who is your advisor in the history department,
Yep.
helping you along with your PhD. Jada's kind of a middle-aged black lady, a little bit gray in her black hair. She's a very supportive advisor, but she is also very, very detail-oriented and very hard-nosed. She'll be gentle about telling you, hey, you need to fix this, but she's not going to shy away from telling you to fix stuff.
Right.
She pokes her head in, and she looks around, and she says, Jessa, have you seen Professor Holland by chance?
No, I haven't. Haven't seen him for a little while. Why?
Oh, well, there's, you know what? It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll find him. And she
Okay.
closes the door. Um, Yeah.
Yeah. Seems interesting. I'm done here. Pack up the last of my stuff. I'll follow.
Can I also ask you for a detection action? So, Ghost has the detection power and can detect a couple different types of energies phenomenon, including illusions and dimensional energies. So, no willpower card, sadly. Now, the one thing you do have going for you at the moment is, I mentioned before, every hero has an edge and a hand size. Hand size is how many cards you have in your hand at any given time, or the max number of cards you can have in your hand at any given time. Edge is basically a measure of your character's experience as a superhero. You might be an expert in your civilian field, but that doesn't translate over to saving the world necessarily. So, what Edge is it allows you to basically say, if you look at your hand, if you have a card equal to or less than your Edge, you can play that card in addition to whatever your normal card play for the action is. So, this low kind of experience level, it's a small boost, or it's a small, like, bump, but it's a bump. Basically, the higher your character's experience, the higher their Edge, the more they're able to get value out of those low-intensity cards. So, so yeah, you can play that one if you would like to, and then you can add one of your other two cards on top of that.
Yeah, if I played this, and I played this, that would give me an 8 plus 4, I'd hit 12.
Yep, that is indeed true. Let's see, do you have any observation? Yeah, okay, we'll say the observation skill is going to come into play there. Okay, so the 12 total action score, and then if you have a skill that's appropriate to whatever it is you're trying to do, that reduces the level of difficulty by 1 step, and each step is in increments of 4. So, in theory, this could have been up to a difficulty 16, and you would succeed. Which, as it happens, you do. So we'll discard those 2 cards. You can draw back the ones that you played into your hand. Well, you definitely upgraded on those cards.
Yeah.
So, while you're kind of like, gathering up your things to leave, you get a strange sort of like pressure in your head. It's not painful. It's just like, it's one of those things where when you feel like there's something in the room with you, that kind of like eerie feeling you get sometimes when you're in a house by yourself. And it's kind of coming from further into the building, like not in this room. You'd have to go a few rooms out. But as you like head out into the hallway after Professor Davis, she's walking in the direction of this like weird, like drawing force, whatever it is.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, I will ask at this point, has Jessa ever experienced up to this point like a weird dimensional phenomenon, or is this kind of the first time?
Probably the first time.
Okay.
I would say she hasn't experienced it before.
Or at least not that she knew that that's what it was like. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, you are following along behind Professor Davis, and she pokes her head into a couple other rooms and kind of asks whoever's in there the same question, and then finally she takes her phone out and she dials, and call goes through. Clearly voicemail picks up, and she says, Tim, it's Jada again. I really would love for you to call me back. I've got something really exciting to talk to you about, but obviously probably best that we talk about it in person. Call me. And she hangs up. She kind of like looks up and down the hallway, feeling a little like clearly not agitated, but impatient, which is not terribly usual for her. And she kind of like sees you walking down the hallway towards her, and she says, you know what? I'm not going to sit around and wait. Jessica, come on. I need your help with something.
Okay.
And she takes you further in the direction of this strange sensation that you're having. She takes you into one of the back hallways and into one of the rooms that is often used for, like, if people are working with some sort of like historical item that is on loan to the university or whatever the case may be. It's kind of one of those rooms that's sort of a specimen examination room.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like a clean room, but it's it's one of those rooms that's very tidy. It's got like a couple like magnifying instruments and lots of paper
Yep.
for notes, yada yada yada. So yeah, on the center of the table, in the center of the room, is a wooden crate with straw that's kind of like packed in, but you can see some poking out. And resting kind of on there's a pile of straw kind of around the table. Resting on the straw in this crate is an odd looking like stone or kind of crystal looking thing.
Get up a little closer to look at it.
Okay. She says, "Oh, you know what? Hold on. I need my tablets. Just hold on for just a moment. I'll be right back."
Sure.
She goes, and she says, "Oh, obviously it goes without saying, don't touch it." And she steps
Right.
She leaves, and as you step closer to kind of get a better look at it, it is. Give me an intellect action, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, play my intellect card, and that lets me draw one and put it up.
Yep.
And that's gonna hurt, but I guess
Oh,
that's really nice card though for totals.
that's true. Yeah, the Doom cards can be double-edged swords for sure. So, those of you who are just seeing it for the first time, the black or gray cards are Doom cards. So it's the 5th suit. It doesn't correspond to any stat or power, but basically whenever a player plays a Doom card, either from their hand or from the top of the deck, it is going to come back to bite them. Normally, I would take that card, and that would go into my hand, and I would be able to use that for some future retribution against the heroes. Instead of that, though, I'm going to draw a card from my physical deck. That way it keeps the card economy in the main deck kind of on point. And I will hang on to this card for future use. So you can go and discard those, draw the card back that you played.
And that total was 12 and 5, 17.
17, okay. Yeah, I'd say that you're able to kind of quickly ascertain what this is. This is a almost perfect. Actually, you're not really a biology or a medical student, but you're pretty sure from those like science classes you had to take as part of your program, you're pretty sure that this is a very accurate recreation of a human heart done in some sort of like quartz crystal type of thing. You know those Himalayan rock salt things?
Yep.
So it's very similar to that. It's even got a little bit of that kind of like pink color throughout it, but it's perfectly smooth, and from the little like detail you can get from this angle, it is very accurate. You can see that there's actually like hollow space where like the aorta leads into the heart and would lead into the different chambers. So it's stunningly realistic.
Pull my phone out and see if I can use it to like zoom in a little bit, maybe record something to try and get an angle on it a little better, because if I can slide my phone down without touching it and get a better view with the camera, that'd be helpful.
Sure. So you kind of take your phone out, and as you do, there's like a faint like vroom, like almost like in Jurassic Park where you see like the water ripples when the Tyrannosaurus Rex is walking. It's kind of like that, but it reverberates more through the air. And when it happens, that that pressure you felt in your head subsides for a split second, and you see kind of like that, almost that mirage haze that you get if you're out like in the desert where it's really hot and you're kind of looking into the distance. It's that kind of like effect kind of ripples through the room from the heart. And so you get your phone out and you go to record and it happens again.
I'm going to step back a little bit and try and record it, see if I can catch it on the phone, that this thing that's happening. Because that seems way better than being right next to it while it's doing that.
Okay. So you step back and, you're focusing on the camera on the phone and everything like that. And it starts to kind of develop a rhythm. It's like, boom, 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 boom. Nothing is showing up on the camera. You can kind of in your peripheral where you're looking, you're focused on the camera, but like in the peripheral vision, you can see that kind of like shimmery effect, still kind of billowing.
I'm gonna move the camera so I'll take it. So my phone was like this, and I'll go down and look. Watching it separately, so it's like the camera's running, but I'm watching. I'm like, what the hell am I seeing?
Probably an appropriate reaction. So, as
back into the door a little more if this starts to speed up.
Okay, it does. In fact, it starts to get faster, and you realize it's actually happening in time with your own heartbeat. Which, as like your adrenaline kind of ramps up a little, your heartbeat increases.
Yep.
This effect, this phenomenon is increasing in rapidity as well.
Okay. I'm gonna get to the door. I'm gonna head towards the door. Yeah.
Okay. You turn towards the door, and let's see. So this is going to be a Game Master Fiat moment. You turn towards the door, you're reaching for it, and all of a sudden your hand kind of dematerializes and reaches through the doorknob.
I'm like, not now. No, not right now.
Your other hand dematerializes and your phone clatters to the ground.
Shit.
You notice as the thum, thum, as that kind of like washes over you, more of your body kind of like dematerializes and kind of goes into that non-physical, non-corporeal state. And then all of a sudden, you are not standing in front of the door. You are not in the university. You are in a very large, kind of mostly circular tunnel with perfectly smooth walls. It leads off in both directions.
What the hell?
Hi, yeah, I'm Michael. I will be playing Kinetic Justice, or KJ for short. You can also find me every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, on Spectrum TTRPG on Twitch, also on YouTube if you want to catch up, because we are almost 30 episodes deep playing Power Rangers.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. Essence 20 is great.
Very cool. I'll have to catch up on some of those because I knew the Power Rangers RPG came out, but I never played it. So
yeah.
Well, you're young, so maybe you don't get this, but the world revolves around money. Okay, so here I am trying to make a quick buck, and I don't know, Lululemon here decides to show up and start like causing problems. Just go like Look,
No,
let me make my
first of
scene.
all-
Let me do this, and then you can come in. We can pretend like you beat me up, and you saved the day, and ya ha ha. But let me do this first, okay?
But no, people are gonna get hurt.
Oh,
Can
you'll
you-
be fine.
You sure? Wait, no.
Mostly.
See, that's the part. It's the mostly part. That's what bothers me.
Well,
Why?
look,
so,
I'm a supervillain. People get hurt when supervillains do their thing. Have you never heard of Froststorm? Come on.
no, I haven't. But
I tell you what.
I mean,
You'd think you'd end up on the news if you freeze a building over or whatever, but no, apparently not. I don't know what
Well,
you got to do to like get some good press around here. Luckily,
if you
the
do you
news
just want
vans.
press, I can get you an interview, if that's what it would take to stop you.
No, I don't want an interview. I want people to know my name so they know I'm serious.
Well,
Look, I'm gonna need you to give me an agility action because he is going to basically like throw a hand out at you and try to encase you in ice.
okay.
So before you do that, this is
okay.
basically going into combat. And
Right.
the way combat works in the game is I'm going to draw a card, and this is going to be the narrator card. This is going to add to whatever the villains or the opposition are doing. So whatever their intensity is, they're going to add the narrator card. This is
Okay.
because this Doom card came out as the narrator card. It's not going to give me a card when it's done. It's just going to go away.
All right.
A couple of things about the narrator cards that are important to note. One is the intensity. It's a 2, so it's relatively low. The other is the aura. This is a negative card. You can see here on the... Actually, nobody else can see that. Let me move it over. You can see here on this Thor card, the aura is positive. That's good for the heroes. At the start of the turn, if the narrator card is positive, the heroes heal. Basically, you draw back a card if you've taken damage. If it's a negative aura, the villains heal, so it's bad for the heroes. And the other thing that's important is going to be the event. These events are basically just little prompts. If I'm like, oh, something interesting should happen here, but I'm not quite sure what, I can always look to the event for inspiration. I can also use it if it's not a fight and I'm just stuck for like how a certain thing resolves. I can draw a narrator card and consult that for some sort of guidance. But yeah, so just a quick overview on how that works. So I do need a... You're flying, so let's call this a flight action to get out of the way.
So I'm working with an 8 already, and I do have aerial combat, which I believe reduces the difficulty.
Yep, it does.
So if it's normally an easy, basically one of the first few levels of difficulty.
Up through challenging is because challenging is difficulty 12. So if you assume it's a challenging action to get out of the way, you are already at 12 just from your flight of 8, and the skill reduces the difficulty by 1 step. So if it was a 12, it would reduce it to an 8. You're already there.
Yeah. And if it's going to do damage to me, then and I've got a strength of 14. I can soak up to 14 points of damage, so I'm actually looking up to around a 26. Is that a reasonable way to look at it?
Not exactly. So basically, let's say your total action score to dodge it is a 15, but he gets a 16. You didn't dodge it, so it hits you. So the 16 points of damage would be applied to you, and then you would subtract your
okay,
your
so
defense. So if you hit me with a 16,
all or nothing, and then you take all of so there's no glancing blow kind of thing.
Correct. Basically, the damage gets reduced based on your defenses, and then you subtract from your cards at that point. So if he does 11 points of damage to you, you don't take anything because you are tough and hardy.
Right. Okay.
For viewers at home, I should point out that Amber has a 14 strength, which is pretty good. In the official stats for Spider-Man using this system, he's got a 12 strength. So, use that to kind of guide yourself.
Well, I think that she's still a little new to all this and just kind of, wasn't really expecting him to do that when they were talking. So I'm going to use this 3 just to get out of my hand.
Okay.
And that will give me a total of 11,
Okay.
and which, with the bonus there.
All right. So we will resolve everything at the end. So we're going to set this card aside. That was for your kind of defensive action. What
Mhm.
active action are you going to do? Do you want to try to like attack him? Do you want to try to get away from him? What's your plan?
I am going to try to grapple him, I think. And
Okay.
basically my thinking here is she's talking with him. He makes an offensive move at her, and she's like, "Hey, stop that!" and just tries to basically get him in a hug.
Okay.
And she does have wrestling for this, as well as, again, aerial combat.
Okay.
So, and for that, since it is aerial combat, I'm going to use the 8.
Okay.
So to grapple him, and that's in the agility. So I'm going to draw the extra card for that, the bonus card.
So actually, I take that. Sorry, you actually can't do. You can't use flight for this. That's because you used flight to dodge, essentially.
Oh, okay.
So you can only use a power once in a given turn, either for defense or for.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
We'll go ahead and we'll set that card over here because you'll be drawing that card here in a second.
Fair enough.
So this is going to be based on your strength in order to basically just grapple him.
All right.
And only one skill would typically apply for reducing the difficulty. You've got aerial combat and wrestling, so you're covered either way.
Right.
So that's going to be a 14 strength plus an 8 is a 22 total to grab him. So you. Let me just check something real quick. Ensnarement. Okay, yeah. So as he tries to blast you with ice and kind of encase you in it, you just kind of quickly dip out of the way and kind of fly in an arc up above him and grab his cloak and yank him, and you manage to get him into a bear hug basically. So he missed you, so that's resolved. You don't have to worry about taking any damage. You did manage to grab him because he is not particularly good at getting out of the way of things like that. So, yeah, that is... All right. Go ahead and draw 2 cards to replace the cards that you played. And are you trying to deal damage to him, or you're just trying to grab him?
I'm just trying to grab him. I'm not trying to hurt him.
Okay. So in that case... you'll draw 1 card back. I drew a card for the Doom card that you played. And
get this? There it is. Oof, another Doom
card. Excellent. Okay, so that's going to go there. We're going to go into the next round. I'm going to go ahead and play the narrator card. Ooh, that is a negative card. Well, he doesn't take any damage. So, one thing, before any actions happen or anything, he... he's like, "Hey, kid, get off me! You're gonna give people the wrong idea. Come on!" And he's like squirming and struggling, trying to get away from you. So what would you like to do this turn?
I think I'm gonna try and fly him towards the ground, just because I think he can probably do less damage that way. He seems to be sort of atmospheric.
Okay.
And also, if he squirms and tries to get away, I don't want him to fall and hurt himself.
Okay.
And so in general, I'm flying towards the ground and, for lack of a better idea, towards the police station.
Okay.
Because that's where you put criminals.
He is going to... He's actually going to help you a little bit in a way. He is also going to use his flight to propel the two of you towards the ground. Although he is doing so with a very different intent than you are with him. So give me an opposed flight action. Now, one thing I will point out is that you've got the cards in your hand, obviously. Those are kind of like the tools you have available to deal with a given situation. Sometimes, though, you're going to look at your hand and be like, none of these cards are really going to do what I want them to do. You've got two options for how to kind of augment the cards that are in your hand. Actually, you've got three, but one of them doesn't apply, so we won't talk about that one just yet. The first one is called Pushing the Edge, and basically what that means is you can play an extra card, but then you don't redraw that card for that action. Basically, you deal damage to yourself in order to accomplish something that, and basically get a higher score than you otherwise would. So, for instance, you could play like the 5 as a push card, and then the 4 for your actual card play to do 9 plus your 8 of 17. Alternatively, you can do what's called, you can do that once for free per story. You can do it more than that, but you have to do willpower actions to do that. We'll talk about that if you decide to. The other thing you can do is a Hail Mary. Now, Hail Mary, you can do once per story per point of edge. So, as an inexperienced hero, you can only really do this once. But this is where you basically say, none of these cards are going to do me any good. I'm going to go ahead and play from the top of the deck. And you treat it just like you played it from your hand. So if it's a Doom card, it comes to me. If it's a card of the correct suit, then you get the boost, everything. But you don't know what you're going to get. So it's, it could go either way. So those are two options you have to you. Just wanted to make you aware of that so that we can,
Well, again, as far as she's concerned, she thinks he has the same idea that she does, that, get him close to the ground so that he doesn't get hurt if he falls, that kind of thing, because he didn't seem to be as good of a flyer as she is.
Okay.
So I'm still going to use this 5 to bump her up to a 13.
Okay.
But let's see. And again, I have the aerial combat that I can use on this.
Okay. So...
Other than that, I'm just keeping a tight hold on him.
Okay. I am going to... hold on, let me just double check. Yeah. Okay. So he has something called Power Dive as a stunt of his flight. And what that means is that he can drop into a free fall, you double your speed, but failure to pull up means you suffer damage. Okay, yeah. Okay. So he is basically going to power dive the ground, but he's going to turn at the last second to make you take the impact rather than him.
Right.
His flight is pretty good. And I'm actually going to go ahead and play that narrator, or that Doom card I got last time. The event is Blow for Freedom, so it's a particularly appropriate because he's trying to get free. So that card is going to be played. That'll go in my discard. So that is going to give him a total of a 26.
Okay.
Which means that... which means that he is the one that kind of ends up kind of taking control of this fall, just because his flight is considerably stronger than yours. And because he accelerates into the ground with you and turns at the last second, you are going to take 26 points of damage. Go ahead and I'm going to discard this card. Go ahead and draw a card back into your hand to replace the one you played. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how damage works. So the way damage works is you take an amount of damage, you subtract whatever defenses you have that are appropriate. For most physical attacks, that's going to be your strength. For most psychic attacks, it's going to be your willpower. But there are some things that will adjust that. For instance, first off, Amber has a strength of 14, so that automatically takes the 26 to 12. In addition, Amber also has the power of resistance, which gives her extra defense against certain kinds of damage. including kinetic damage, which this is. That's another 7 points of defense against this attack. So that takes it down from a 12 to a 5, so you need to discard 5 points worth of cards from your hand.
Okay, which I will do. Now, if I recall, if I discard a Doom card that way, I do not redraw it until after the whole situation's over.
That is correct. Taking damage from Doom cards is a little bit more serious. Normally you would redraw cards if you get a positive card. If you discard a Doom card for damage, then that basically lasts until the end of the combat, regardless. Unless you have regeneration or some other thing that would mitigate that. So basically, it would reduce your maximum hand size to 2 going forward.
Okay. But if I discard this 4 and this 4, I don't redraw now, but I will redraw at the end of next round?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so that's what I will do.
It's not that you at the end of next round. It's at the end of the combat you'll redraw no matter what. But if next round the narrator card is a positive card, you would redraw a card.
Okay.
But discarding these 2 cards means that your max hand size stays at 3 for the rest of this fight, so you can draw back up without a problem.
Okay.
All right, so those cards will go in the discard, and then from there, that's going to get discarded, and Amber does end up releasing him. It's probably the first time Amber's been hit quite that hard. But maybe not. Maybe you tell me.
No, actually, that's she comes up going, "Ow, ow, that kind of hurt."
He's kind of like floating up above you, and he's like, look, kid, you got gumption and you're tough, but you're out of your league. So just let me do what I'm doing. You don't have to get hurt anymore, okay?
How many to tell you? I've got to stop you from hurting other people. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's what heroes do. And she's gonna just fly at him with a punch.
Okay.
In the face.
All right, so I'm going to draw the narrator card. It is neutral, so neither of you are going to gain anything back. I should mention he would have taken some damage from that. Okay, yep. So where am I keeping track of this? Right there. Okay. So that is that, and so you're gonna punch him basically.
Yeah.
And are you attacking him with strength then to try to get the punch off?
Strength with brawling.
Okay, that'll work. And then he is actually going to. He's actually going to kind of turn away from you, and he is going to try and send like a gust of wind out over the bridge to send all the cars like basically like sliding across the ice again.
Okay. Is there any way I can defend against that? Basically putting yourself in the way of the blast, or?
Sure, if you want to, but that would require you to focus on that being your action rather than punching.
Okay. If he's going to do that. On the other hand, I'm pretty used to when I hit something,
they don't get back up.
They don't get back up, but also they tend to be moved quite a bit. So I'm hoping that my punch will make his blast go wide.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Go ahead and give me your action for the punch. It'll be a strength-based action, so you want a strength card ideally.
All right. Well, I only have the one card.
You can do a Hail Mary.
I can, but I don't think so. Now, if I play the 3, do I redraw?
Yes.
After? Okay. In that case, I will do that. So that gives me a 17.
Ouch. Okay. So 17.
And then redraw. I apologize if I'm actually drawing more cards than it looks like, but
Nope.
it only looks like I'm drawing one at a time. So
So you fly up to go and punch him, and he very quickly will actually fly like kind of a loop-de-loop, sort of like you did when you dodged his ice blast behind you, and effectively that puts you right in the path of his gust of wind. So that's actually going to carry you like further away. And let's see, you didn't have a card to defend with, so this is going to be based just on your strength. So he got what is his total there? 17 minus.
does that get?
You don't take any damage because all he would have done was 17, but the 14 strength plus your resistance to kinetics, he still sends you like hurtling away. You crash into the side of the news van. It kind of like rocks on its side, but you're not hurt by it.
Okay. I was going to say the 14 plus the aerial combat or and basically any of my other skills to drop down the difficulty by a level.
So
but you may have already factored that in.
Skills don't actually reduce the amount of damage you take.
Right, but in terms of the on defense, it would lower the difficulty by a level, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. However, that's still not enough to get out of the way. Because you didn't have any other... You basically played the card you had to attack, which means you didn't have any cards to play for defense. That's one of the drawbacks.
Right, no. That part I got. I was just making sure it had been reduced properly and all that. So, all right, fair enough. Crash into the news van.
All right, so I'm going to grab that, and then I'm going to take one of these for you playing a Doom card, and that exchange resolved very quickly. So yeah, he sends you kind of hurtling into the news van. You leave a dent. You hear Timmy and Eliza inside, like, okay, what was that? Well, Timmy says that Eliza knows what's happening because she's got her phone out and she's recording. So she sees you like hurtling towards her, and she kind of ducks back into the van at the last second. And then we're going to go into the next exchange, which Froststorm, that is so unfortunate for you. Okay, so what would you like to do on this turn?
Quick check to make sure I didn't start the news van sliding again.
No, it seems as if you caught the brunt of that gust of wind. So like you hit it and it kind of rocked a little bit, but it didn't. It wasn't the right kind of impact to like send it skidding along the ice. I will say he has already started monologuing. He's like, people of Portland, I am Froststorm. You will pay me $3 million, blah, blah, blah.
And that's at that point that I fly up and punch him in the face.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fair. I imagine that you're... so one thing I should mention is you can push and do a Hail Mary in the same action. Doing that now would mean you fall unconscious at the end of the round, but, I mean, hey, maybe that would be worth it. But just so you know, you can do that.
All right. I can't push because I only have the one card, correct?
Well, you can, but then at the end of the round, you'd fall unconscious automatically.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I definitely want to be conscious for this.
Okay.
So, yeah, I will just, while he's monologuing, I am going to just punch him.
Okay.
I'll play that 8 for a total of 22.
22 with brawling, so that reduces, so it's average reduces to easy. So 22 is basically, okay. All right. So he is going to... He's got aerial combat, so he's going to use that. He's got flight, so let's get an 18. 19. Wait, sorry. Okay, yeah. You slug him with no problem. He is going to...
Take 22 points of damage on the chin. She said, hopefully.
No, not exactly. He is going to take a lot of damage, but not 22. He is going, like, he's kind of focused on monologuing, if I'm honest, because he kind of figured that throwing you into a van after diving you into the ground was enough to knock you out. So that's pretty much what he's doing. So you land a really solid punch and kind of send him, like, spinning away, like in I don't know if anybody watches Dragon Ball Z, but like when somebody punches one of the Z fighters into the sky and they just it's kind of similar to that. So that is going to be what's his strength? Not that good. All right, so that is going to be a lot of damage. That's 18 points of damage total, leaving him at that. Okay. So we'll discard that card, and then you drew already to redraw. I'm going to get rid of that. That's going to come up here. Okay, so that is a 5 and a neutral card, so nobody's going to heal again this turn. What would you... He is going to, like... he's going to basically say... it's going to basically say, like, I can't believe this. Some gym rat with delusions of grandeur. Fine. I'll do this later. He's going to try to fly off.
I'm going to try and fly after him and tackle him again.
Okay.
Basically, he's... Yeah, no, he's not getting away.
Okay.
Actually, but actually, no, I should clarify. She's going to take a quick assessment of the situation, make sure no one is in danger, and then fly after him.
Give me a... What would this be? This is going to be an intellect action with, I think, physics? What makes the most sense here?
I mean, the only thing I have to throw at the problem skill-wise is journalism, and the only argument I can make is that she's, experienced in finding where things are going on so that she can cover them. So, but that's the only thing I can throw at it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that would apply here, but it's still
fair enough. Absolutely
it's still an
fair.
intellect action to kind of assess the situation.
So I will play the 5 of intellect here.
Okay.
Strong evidence, and that gives me and there's a 6 that I'm adding to that. So 11 plus my intellect of 4 is 15. And then redraw.
Okay.
Oof.
We'll say that wasn't part of the exchange. That was just a quick thing. It looks like there are 2 cards here. Do you know which one you drew first?
Oh, yeah, the one I just drew, I don't know when that 2 came up.
Okay.
Like I say, when I've been drawing, sometimes it looks like there's not a card drawn, and it may have just gone off screen for me. So.
Maybe. In player's hands. Okay, so we'll do that. All right. So. You notice that as soon as he kind of turns away and starts to kind of leave, the weather actually gets worse. Like there are as soon as he kind of is like, you know what, I'm out of here, and he turns around, like there's like more thunder, lightning strikes. It's starting to like hail. It's suddenly ramped up. That's what you notice.
Okay. Do I notice a source for this?
No. You're with your oblivious hindrance.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah. No. Fair enough. Absolutely fair. In that case, I will not fly after him. I will basically work to make sure people are safe, and if I can figure out a way to stop this, I will. But otherwise, I will just work to keep people as safe as possible instead of going after him.
Okay. I think we will call this... So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna say that Eliza has jumped out of the van. It's kind of like is like holding, I don't know, some like she's holding like a laptop case or something like that to kind of shield herself from the hail a little bit. And she's kind of like hauling people out of their cars, like telling them to go get inside the van. And as you fly back, she's gonna be like, "Hey, you, pick up the van and get everybody out of here." And she's gonna dive back into the van as well. So,
which she will promptly do. Pick up the van and fly off. Put it down somewhere safe, where it, basically on a road somewhere nearby on solid ground.
Okay. It does seem like the weather is centralized over the bridge. Like there's some like residual effect kind of like along the edges of that area, but mostly it's centered on the bridge. You do notice that the river underneath is actually partially frozen over.
Okay.
But it's still flowing, so like obviously some of the ice kind of floats down the river and then it melts and breaks up. I'm going to use the explosion event just to add a little bit of drama here. That once like you have to make 2 trips because not everybody's going to fit in the one van. But
right.
You get the first van out of there, you go back for the second one. At which point all of the people on the bridge have kind of realized what's happening and they pile into the van. Lightning strikes one of the cars and it explodes. Asphalt goes everywhere. It's people scream. It's very dramatic, very climactic. Give me a. I want to say, actually, hold on. So the combat is over. So once the fight ends, generally speaking, all the heroes draw back up to full cards, even if they were unconscious.
Okay.
So go ahead and draw 2 more cards.
All right.
Perfect. So at this point, I think I'm going to call for a strength action to hold on to the van, which is, kind of slippery, covered in ice, and there's like strong winds, and I mean, you might get zapped by lightning. Who knows?
Right.
So that is going to be a strength action. One thing I will say is that there is another thing that you can do to kind of give yourself a little bit of an edge or a little bit of a bonus on your cards. So every hero has a stat called their edge. This is basically a measure of your experience. More experienced heroes have a higher edge, and the way that kind of reflects in the mechanics is if you have any card in your hand that is equal to or lower than your edge is currently 1. You've got a 1 in your hand. You can play that card, and then you can play another card as normal. And it's the second card that you play that would actually trigger the boost if it's the right suit. So as you get higher experience and your edge gets to like a 2 or a 3, if you have a hand full of 3s, you can play all of them as edge cards and then play like a final card to the actual card play. So, it basically gives you a little bit more value out of those low intensity cards as your edge increases.
So, well, all things considered, I think I am going to do exactly what you just suggested, and then get the boost card, because that is a strength.
Okay.
And that's 6, unfortunately, but that is a total of 11 more, so 25.
25. And you have the weightlifting skill, which means anything involving lifting heavy objects or breaking down doors or whatever is a little bit easier for you. So, okay. Yeah, that's more than enough. Like you basically dig your fingers in, so you've got a good grip, and you fly the van to, I don't know, maybe you grip it from the top, you tell me. But either way, you fly the van to safety and you set it down like on the edge of the weather. And over the course of the next like 15 minutes or so, the weather gets a little bit worse and then starts to kind of die down. It's almost like it runs itself out.
Okay.
And then you go ahead and draw back up to your 3 cards. And there was a Doom card in there, so I'm gonna grab another one of these. Ooh.
All right. So once everyone's safe and the weather dies down, and Amber's keeping, once she set down the van, she flies up and is sort of at the edge of the weather to make sure that like no chunks of the bridge fall off or that kind of thing. But once the weather dissipates, she is going to fly down and grab her duffel bag,
Okay.
fly to some
Actually,
convenient.
before you do that, as you
Mhm.
you kind of set things down and you're like making sure everybody's okay, um, the news anchor is going to fall out of the van. The cameraman is right behind him and has a camera already rolling, and the news anchor kind of shoves a microphone in your face, and he says,
Uh,
"Brock Kentman, what's your name?"
it's Amber. Wait,
You heard it here,
wait.
folks.
No,
Superhero Amber has
wait,
just
no, no,
saved.
that's not my superhero name.
He does not. He's like, a new superhero is in town named Amber. Clearly, she's here to join the impending Vigilantes Union Local 13, assuming that the vote passes. He kind of goes off on his own narrative, sort of heroically saved dozens of people on the bridge after an attack by some unknown villain. You get the feeling that Froststorm is going to be really annoyed because he very clearly announced his name and loud enough for everybody to hear it. So the fact that he was just broadcast as an unknown villain is probably going to bug him a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they.
Actually, when the anchor says, some unknown villain, just quietly in the background, others would be like, he said his name was Froststorm. Um,
Okay.
I just,
Yeah.
and of course, he refused to block her out of frame, I imagine.
Yeah, they kind of pan the camera a little bit and ostensibly it's to get a view of all the survive all the people that you rescued and everything, and but it's kind of to get you from being standing over Brock's shoulder trying to get his attention. But it does give you kind of the perfect opportunity, the perfect cover to take off and get changed.
Yeah, that's what she's going to do. Grab the duffel bag, go into a convenient dark alley, do the super change again, and then basically right as they're finishing up the Brock segment there, she'll come running up with a cable in her hand saying, "Oh, I found the cable!" And, still basically giant blonde muscle slab with, but now wearing glasses and, her
Professional attire.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can still see the bright pink sports bra underneath the white shirt, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Your character is the son of two superheroes. Well, a superhero and a villain turned hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, do your either of your parents have powers, or are they just really well trained?
Mom is slightly powered, like slightly enhanced, like agility,
Okay.
kind of that kind of thing. But other than that, dad is just full training. I
Okay.
think, yeah.
I'm gonna make a quick note of that here so that I can build them out as appropriately.
Yeah.
Here's what you know about this villain that your father in particular, but also your mother, has faced in the past. There was a string of relatively grisly murders that your father ended up kind of, you know, becoming aware of, and decided to tackle this case and find out who this killer was. And he tracked down the culprit, and the major calling card, if you want to use that term, that identified a particular attack or a particular murder on, as being the work of this villain, was that the victims were partially, if not entirely, eaten. Yeah.
All right.
Like I said, grisly stuff. Your father tracked the murderer down, kind of confronted them, had a few run-ins with them, ultimately teamed up with your mom, the Osprey, to kind of put a stop to it. And I don't know if your dad has a philosophy against killing people or not, but regardless, the whole thing came to an end with this villain, who the media dubbed Voracious is the villain's name. They apparently, and this actually happened sort of with a live newscast, filming the whole thing. Voracious plummeted to his death, his apparent death. However, I should have had my page with the notes here so that I could reference back to this properly.
However, no one dies in comic books.
No one dies in comic books, yes. And more importantly, so in trying to determine who this villain was, what they were doing and why were they doing this and everything like that, your father contracted, or not contracted, but worked with a contact, basically, someone who's kind of into divination and things like that, more on the mystical side of things than traditional investigation, like your father was. And this individual basically helped determine that Voracious is not a given. It's not like a person. Voracious is a spirit, and so far as could be determined, has been around for quite some time. Every generation or so, after whatever form Voracious has taken is slain, they return as some other kind of creature, some other kind of monster. When your father fought Voracious, they were kind of a large, semi-lizard creature, thick scales and claws and the ability to climb walls and things like that. Very, very clearly not purely human. There isn't a lot of historical reference to this thing being encountered, previously through history. Obviously, there's lots of mythology around cannibals and cannibal spirits and things like that. Maybe those can be attributed to this thing, maybe not. There's really no way to know what's just actual mythology, folklore, religion, and actually what is this spirit. What is known is that at some point this thing is going to come back. And it is intelligent, and it's intelligent enough to have a grudge against your dad and probably your mom too. So just something to keep an eye out for.
Okie dokie.
Yeah. Probably one of the main reasons that a lot of the Vigilantes Union's chapters across the country were very, very yeah, no, we're good, thanks. We're not taking applications at this time. When KJ attempted to apply in those unions, nobody wants that thing brought to their doorstep. So yeah, that's the deal with your legacy, your inheritance, so to speak. Thanks, Dad.
Dad, one Wendigo to go.
So one thing I'm trying to do is very clearly make it not that, because there's a lot of like Native American stuff
Sure, yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. So, so it is very distinctly not that. There is actually more to the origins and whatnot that maybe you'll find out if you decide to investigate that at a later time.
Tries to eat me. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Oh wait, hold on. I need to make a quick note right here. But in the meantime, you are trying to make your way as a hero in different parts of the country. You have recently come to Portland because you are looking to join the Vigilantes Union chapter that is most likely going to be opening up here. There's some contention about that. There's going to be a vote. It's got general support here in Portland, but there is a little bit of a wrinkle. There's like a special interest group kind of lobbying for an alternative to the union, instead basically hiring on a private security company that has experience and is tailored to like superhuman threats and things like that. So that's kind of what's going on right now. But in the meantime, there's nothing stopping you from coming to Portland and being a superhero. So that's kind of where we find ourselves. What does KJ do during the day-to-day? Like, what's his day job?
I'm a private investigator.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we take a look at KJ's character sheet, KJ is very much an intellect-based character. Like, so those of you at home who don't know, the general scale of like how strong someone is or how smart someone is on a scale of 1 to 20. Normal humans cap out at a 10 for pretty much everything. Like superhumans cap out at like a 20. To put it in terms that people will understand, in the Marvel comics, some of the popular characters there in the game with the stats translated, Captain America's strength is a 10. Cyclops has a strength of 6. He's tough, but he's not superhuman. Captain America's almost, peak human ability. The Hulk is a 20. So like that gives, and there's other stuff that factors into that, but that gives you a general idea that, the Hulk is, and it's not just like, it's not that a 20 strength is just twice as strong as a 10 strength. It's kind of an exponential increase as you go up. So having an 11 intellect means KJ is smart. I think in terms of the stats, I think Mr. Fantastic, the smartest hero in the Marvel Universe, has a 12 intellect.
Yeah.
So, KJ's up there. He's a smart cookie. So yeah. Just something for our viewers to keep in mind as we progress through this little story that we're going to be telling today. As a private investigator, do I want to make you... that wouldn't be very nice. Do I want to do it anyways? No. We'll say you've had a reasonable amount of success. Like, it's kind of weird the way that the unions work in the States. A villain will basically be like, oh, hey, this city has what I need, and so I'm going to show up and I'm going to do villain stuff in the city. And then, it's quite possible that a Vigilantes Union springs up in response to that. And that villain already has roots set down there. Like they've got stuff that they're doing. They got projects. They can't just up and move. So, those villains kind of tend to just stick around with that city or that region. And then, up-and-coming villains will typically flock to a city that doesn't have a union. Because it's not as protected. It's easy pickings, so to speak, which isn't exactly true. There are non-union heroes going out and like protecting these places, but generally speaking, there's not an organized team specific to one area, so it's a little bit more profitable for villains. Portland was kind of in the same vein. Like a couple of villains like started kind of like plaguing the city. Some of the vigilantes were responding, and then the people of the city decided like, hey, we want to get a union in here, or something official to protect us. So there's a surprising amount of activity in Portland because most of the big cities already have unions. New York, Chicago, LA, Seattle, Miami, they all have unions. Portland was a big enough city that it was attractive to villains, and now there is, now there's a union kind of cropping up to curtail some of that. All that to say, as a private investigator, you probably find more than enough work. Like, there's lots of missing people, and find
Cheating
this...
spouses.
Yeah, and there's always like the more mundane stuff. Cheating spouses, my kid ran away, I want you to track him down. Like, I want you to follow this person and, see if they're up to anything suspicious, things like that. But there's also some, more super heroic stuff. Like, hey, this family heirloom of mine was stolen and it grants people fantastic powers. And, I need you to go get it back. But by the way, the guy who has it is probably going to have access to those fantastic powers. And, I don't know if... Is KJ kind of publicly, like, does he advertise himself as a private investigator who is also a superhero?
No.
Okay. So he has a legit secret identity.
Yeah, at least for now. I think he's not sure if that's the route he wants to go, especially with parents who very much were all about the secret identity. So.
Okay. Do people know that KJ is the Drake and the Osprey's son? And related question, do people know that Nikki is their son?
Certain people would. Certainly, the union higher-ups would definitely know. But it's general public knowledge. Maybe people know that KJ, like in costume, because there was maybe it was at least the sidekick.
Okay.
And if anyone is paying attention, they probably heard him say "dad" and "mom" at some point.
Okay. So his powers kind of manifested fairly early then.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was like a teen sidekick?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's fair. And yeah, the union higher ups, like, I kind of imagine that, like, there's some rumor that, like, the Drake and this voracious thing were, like, kind of at odds and whatnot, and your parents probably would have, like, if you were going to join a union, they would have encouraged you to, like, warn them, like, hey, you should let them know that this is a thing because, otherwise you're putting people at risk. Which, while good intention, did kind of result in you getting pseudo-blacklisted. But the union reps, they're contractually obligated not to reveal secret identities. So, you submit an application, you kind of tell them your background, and, they turn you away, but they're not going to turn around and, like rat you out to the public or anything like that. So, okay. So it makes sense that a few people would know, but in general, it's not a public thing. So you're a private investigator as Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, that works out pretty well, actually, because there is going to be some crime afoot.
Funny that.
Yeah, right. What? supervillains in a superhero game? I thought we were just going to sit around and have tea. All right. So you are in the office, probably like recently finished up a case, maybe finalizing your notes, and I imagine Nikki is being a very meticulous guy for like case files and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you get everything kind of squared away and tidied up, and as frequently seems to happen, just as you're like, okay, that's done. I close the book on it, and you put your pencil in the pencil holder. The door opens, and a rather unsteady-looking old lady walks in. She's got a cane and it's kind of wobbly and everything. Stooped shoulders. She moves relatively quickly. Like she's not slow, but she definitely looks like she's gonna fall over.
Yeah, I'll go help her. Ma'am, can I help you?
She says, "Yes, you're that investigator in town, right? You don't have to ma'am me. My name is Ethel. You just call me Ethel, or E if you prefer."
Yeah, right. You call me Nikki.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very nice of you. Like she'll take a chair across from your desk and kind of settles in.
How can I help you?
I'm afraid that something of mine has gone missing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'll have to forgive me. I'm not usually this old. She kind of like adjusts herself and sits up. She says, "There's a trinket in my family." Sorry, what did you say?
Continue.
There's a little an heirloom in my family. Bit of a trinket. In and of itself, it's worthless. It's just a little silver locket. Nothing particularly exciting about it. The interesting thing is there is if you open it up, on the one side there's a small like arcane rune or sigil etched into it, and on the other side, when our family passes this trinket on, the person who inherits it will put their portrait in it and close it, and they'll wear it most of the time. And essentially, it keeps us young for as long as we wear it, every day for at least a few hours.
Yeah. Right.
And yes, so as I said, I'm not usually this old.
Right. And this locket works for people who aren't of your bloodline?
I honestly don't know. We've never tried to hand it out outside of the bloodline. It's some fey gift or something from a great grandmother. I rarely paid attention as a child. I thought it was all kind of silly and it was rather boring. But then when I found out it was real, that changed my mind somewhat.
Of course. What do you know about the culprit?
I was at my friend's estate. My friend is fairly well off. My friend is Brock Kentman, the news anchor. I'm sure you've seen him. A very handsome man, but regardless, friend of mine, and I was at his estate, and we were going swimming and just enjoying a leisurely barbecue in the backyard, and obviously I wouldn't take the locket to such a thing, and when I changed into my bathing suit, I took off the locket and left it with my clothing. However, it would seem that someone broke into his house while we were enjoying our party and made off with not just the locket. I think it was just unfortunate an unfortunate accident. A great number of valuables were made off with from his home.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I keep asking him if he can provide me with the contact information for the detective that's handling the investigation, but he won't seem to provide it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a little bit
Interesting.
embarrassed, if I'm honest, and he's trying to keep a tight lid on things. Oh, I should have mentioned. Yes, I would appreciate discretion if you don't mind. As I said, my friend is.
Sure.
Oh, wonderful. You're fully bonded and licensed by the city, of course, I assume.
Yeah.
Oh, then your discretion is practically guaranteed. Perfect. So yes, is this the sort of case you would take, or?
Yeah, I just wrapped up a case, so yeah, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic.
Now, you have a list of what else was stolen? Do you know?
I know that well, my purse was missing, as well as my phone, and wallets and purses and phones, the ones that were left in the house, sort of in the guest room where everybody put their jackets and things of that nature. And there
Your
was a couple pieces of artwork, I think a statue or sculpture or a figurine or something that Kent had mentioned, but I didn't catch the details.
how large?
Well, nothing that would require heavy lifting that I'm aware of. All relatively small but valuable items. I think the figurine
Small.
was a replica Venus de Milo, made of some semi-precious gemstone or other. I will say Kent's tastes are rather ostentatious when it comes to home decor. But I suppose when you come from the kind of money his family has, then it's to be expected.
Okay, nothing overtly large. All right. Without the amulet, how your aging process? Are you still aging? Is there a
No,
time limit on this case for you?
no. Nothing like that. I, well, I'm 93 years old, but in fabulous health. One of the benefits of remaining young is
Of
that,
course.
for the most part, everything continues working quite well, even when I do age back to my natural age. Uh,
All right.
our
Good.
family isn't immortal. Whoever has the locket tends to reach about 100 years old or so. And then they die of natural causes, and the amulet goes to whoever was supposed to get it next. Usually a grandchild or, a niece or nephew or whatever the case may be.
Okay. How long ago did this happen?
Pardon me, sorry.
When was the theft?
It was 3 days ago,
3 days.
which is why I'm surprised the police haven't contacted me. But after, calling Kent again this afternoon, he, kind of gave me the runaround. If I'm honest, I decided to take matters into my own hands.
Probably good that you did.
Well, you seem like a capable young man, so I don't know if you have any other questions. I'm always happy to chat.
Of course. I think currently I'll need to do some research. But please leave your contact information. I'll slide over a pad. And if I have any questions, I will be in touch. My standard retainer is 1,000 a week plus expenses.
Oh yes, of course. No worries there. And she takes out a checkbook, and it takes her a minute, but she writes out a check, and she says, "This should cover the first week."
Brilliant. Of course. Thank you.
She writes her name down, phone number. Her name is Morgana Fayette. Fayette. She
She
says,
is. Yes.
So yeah, she'll stick around and answer any other questions you have at the moment, if you have any. Otherwise, she will. She says, "I'll call Kent and let him know that you might be by, just to ask some questions or look around if that would be useful to you."
Yes.
He
I appreciate that.
he may give you a bit of guff when you show up, but don't let that stop you. He rarely, well, if I'm honest, he rarely exercises that backbone of his. He'll let you in because I'll have told him to, but he may complain about it quite vociferously.
I would expect nothing less, having seen his newscasting.
Yes, he is very pleased by the sound of his own voice. Yeah, if you don't have anything else, she will excuse herself. But if you do have questions, let me know.
I will, absolutely. Thank you.
All right.